debate with a panel of experts. Michael Starr Hopkins, a Democrat strategist who served on the presidential campaigns of both Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton. Kelly Sadler, who's a communications director at the campaign organization America First Action and served as a special assistant to President Trump. And Omarosa Manigault, who became famous as a contestant on the first season of Donald Trump's reality show, The Apprentice, of course. She wasn't hired by him on the show, but did go on to work in the White House before quitting and writing a book that was critical of the president. Well, the candidates are already here. Donald Trump arrived in Cleveland a little earlier today. He spent about 20 minutes at the venue walking through what would happen here. He was waved off from the White House by staff who gathered on the South Lawn to give him a cheer as he left. We're now looking at a live picture actually at this venue. You can see the president's motorcade outside of this venue. What are we, about 30 minutes away from the start of that debate, making his appearance, his arrival here. As I say, he had a brief walkthrough, having arrived in Cleveland, to get a sense of the stage. That's what they tend to do, to get an understanding of the geography inside that venue. And there you see, as I say, the president's motorcade making its arrival at the venue for him to make those final preparations. Now, his Democratic challenger, Joe Biden, traveled on his new campaign aeroplane from a pretty wet-looking Wilmington in Delaware, where he lives, protected by both a mask and an umbrella, of course. And those two men, as we see the president's motorcade make its way in, will be on stage in about 30 minutes. Well, let's talk to our U.S. correspondent, Cordelia Lynch, who's here in Cleveland. And Cordelia, there's so much focus in this debate on reaching out to the undecided voters. They estimate, 2 to 4% of the American electorate haven't made up their minds, even at this late stage. What have these candidates got to do to appeal to those undecideds right now?
Yeah, they have seemed like an extinct species of late, those undecided voters, a small slither of the electorate, but crucial, particularly in those battleground states. And this is not a done deal. By no means is the game over, and both candidates have challenges ahead to try and win those people over. And it's not only those, it's also about trying to arm their supporters with conviction about their decisions. They've got a chance to rattle things now. Joe Biden needs to persuade those that are perhaps hovering, a bit wavering about their faith in him, that he is up to the job, that he will be stable, steady, that he has a vision for America. Donald Trump has to persuade those doubtful conservatives who've been unhappy with his handling of the pandemic that he is the only one to steer the economy. Now, 70% of people in a recent poll said that they would not be affected by this debate, that it wouldn't steer their ultimate decision. But it's the rest that are left over that these men need to try and corner. I've been speaking to some of those in the past 48 hours, and they've got a kind of plethora of things that they want to see on show. A lot of it seems to come down to character. I think with Donald Trump, some of those that are perhaps angling towards voting for him, they want to see that he's got some sort of civility, that he's not going to start getting into a slanging match, that he's not going to attack the moderator, and that he's going to be clear about his vision for a second term. I think with Joe Biden, they want to see him condemn socialism, to show that he can be stable when it comes to the economy. So this is fluid, it is dynamic. Arguably there is more, Greg, for Donald Trump to lose, because at the moment the polls suggest that Joe Biden is leading in 6 key battleground states. But there's also a lot that Biden can lose from this. There's so much that he needs to try and skewer Donald Trump on, and if he doesn't seize on that opportunity, people might perceive him as weak. Now, when it comes to strategy, as I understand it, Donald Trump is going to try and attack some of Joe Biden's family. He will have to be careful not to rise to the bait on that. Joe Biden, he's going to try and focus on coronavirus and the recent revelations about Trump's tax returns. It seems that this is the most anticipated debate in, I'd say, 30 years, even if not necessarily the most consequential.
Cordelia here in Cleveland, thank you very much for that. Well, the location chosen here in Cleveland for tonight's debate is one that Donald Trump really needs to win. In fact, no Republican has ever become president without winning here in Ohio. At just over 81%, the state is white. It's less diverse than the rest of the country. America's biggest minority group is Latinos, who represent 18% of the population, but here in Ohio, it's less than 4%. And Donald Trump's tailored message to rural and working class voters who felt left behind appeared to work 4 years ago, and he comfortably won then by 8 percentage points, and it's a key state once again. Well, let's bring in our panel, Michael Starr-Hopkins, Kelly Sadler and Omarosa Manigault. Thanks very much to all of you for joining us on this big, significant night, as we always know in a presidential campaign, this first debate. And Omarosa, you know this president for good and bad. What are you expecting from him on the debate stage tonight?
I just think back to being there in my home state of Ohio and how critical this state is to any president trying to be reelected in Donald's case, or to be elected in Joe Biden's case. And my expectation is that Donald Trump wants to stay away from his record. If you start looking at the two men's record, then you'll be very concerned about whether or not Donald Trump can stand by his horrible response to the COVID pandemic, to the economy, to race and violence in this country that's breaking out in all of our cities. But also he'll have to answer questions about his taxes, his personal finances, how he treats women, how he's been demeaning to women. And of course, he will have to address the fact that there have been more than 200,000 Americans who died to COVID, and he knew that he could prevent this very early on. These are the things that I believe that Biden will zero in on, and it'll be very interesting to see how this debate unfolds.
Kelly Sadler, we've seen throughout the last few weeks that Donald Trump has been on the attack towards Joe Biden, questioning everything from whether he's taking drugs to having listening devices in his ears. Would you expect that he would go on the attack on the debate stage, similarly to what we saw back in 2016, of course, with how he handled Hillary Clinton?
Well, absolutely, the president is going to go on the attack tonight. Let's just keep in mind, the American people, even though Joe Biden has been in public service for 47 years, the American people have not gotten to know him on the campaign trail this year. He has called a lid on the majority of his days. In September, he has not been out on the campaign trail. He has not been having rallies. People don't know his public policy positions. In the primaries, he was all for banning fracking, for example. Now he says he's not for banning fracking. We need to get to know who Joe Biden is and where his policy stances are. Are they with the radical left, the progressive side of the wing of the Democratic Party, or is he a moderate? And I think the president is going to start to tease out those answers, because Joe Biden just hasn't been available to the media, nor has Kamala Harris. So we need to get those answers tonight, and I think the president is going to press him on that.
Michael Starr-Hopkins, we've heard there what the president's side of Joe Biden is, the president's view of Joe Biden is. What does Joe Biden have to do to answer those criticisms and to make a good showing on the debate stage tonight?
So what Joe Biden needs to do tonight is stay focused on the issues. He needs to talk about what he would have done as under a Biden administration and how he would have addressed the COVID crisis. At the end of the day, the Trump campaign can talk all they want about Joe Biden being in his basement, but the anchor around their neck is the fact that 200,000 plus Americans are dead. They will not be around the Thanksgiving table in November. And what's likely to happen in November is that there will be no Thanksgiving table dinner because everyone will be on Zoom, because we still will not have addressed this. By January 1st, they are saying 3,000 Americans will be dying every day. And so what Joe Biden needs to do is be the steady hand. Donald Trump's going to try to get into the mud and say a lot of inappropriate and hyper-partisan things to distract away and score cheap points. But at every point, Joe Biden needs to turn back to him and say, but Mr. President, what about those 200,000 Americans dead? Mr. President, what about that $750 you paid in taxes versus the $12,000 in taxes the average union worker is making? So these are, I think, issues that Joe Biden can be very successful on, and I think he needs to hone in on them, not get distracted.
Well, they'll be on that stage in 20 minutes or so, and we'll see which of the three of you are right about what actually happens there. We can see inside there, and again, you can see what they've had to do to adhere to the rules in the pandemic age, and the fact that everyone is spaced out in the audience. We've seen in the past these debates got pretty raucous with the audience in the auditorium. As much as they're warned to keep quiet, it's very clear you get a response to what's being said on the stage. In real time, if you like. That won't happen certainly as much tonight, and the two candidates will be spaced out. And the moderator, Chris Wallace of the Fox News channel. Fox News, of course, pretty sympathetic generally to Donald Trump as president, but Chris Wallace, a man who has tangled with him in interviews, we know, in recent months, and has been shown himself willing to act as a fact checker in some of those interviews. He has said he won't be doing that tonight on the debate stage, but it will be a fascinating 90 minutes, 15-minute segments. Let's look at the polling, because the national polls show that the Democrat challenger Joe Biden is leading the president by a significant margin, 6 points, 49 to 43. But of course, this election is really about the path to 270 electoral college votes and what happens in those key swing states. Well, here in Ohio, the Democrat lead is narrower, 49 to 46, so within the margin of error of all of the polling, and that could be important. No candidate has won the presidency without winning Ohio since John Kennedy back in 1960. If we move on to Pennsylvania, it's looking better for the Democrats. Joe Biden leading there by 6 points, 50 to 44. He was born in Pennsylvania, of course. It's part of what Democrats call their blue wall until Donald Trump narrowly took the state 4 years ago. We then moved down to another key swing state, Florida, hotly contested in every election. It's almost neck and neck according to the current polling. Joe Biden on 48% versus Donald Trump on 47%, again within the margin of error. And these numbers suggest that tonight both candidates still have everything to play for. And Omarosa, to you first of all, what are you looking at in terms of those swing states? What are you seeing that will be decisive? Because, of course, it will be those handful of states and a few thousand voters, as it was in 2016, who will be decisive.
Yes, Greg, I think that when you think about American families, they're hurting right now. The economy is working for the very wealthy, but middle-class families are suffering. So Americans are going to be looking to those who speak to their needs and their issues. Like, how are they going to fill prescriptions or fill their gas tank, put food on the table? I mean, these are the issues. Ultimately, how is each of these candidates going to address the economic woes of the American people is the prime concern. Also, they're concerned that Donald Trump is going to take away their health care in the middle of a pandemic. I mean, that is one of the key issues that I believe that viewers will be watching. And they're also concerned about leadership. If Donald Trump decides to go dirty like he always does and distract with personal attacks, the American people will make note of that. They're looking for someone to lead them through these tough times, not someone to play a reality TV host.
And Kelly, do you think the president should be worried by those numbers, particularly out of places like Pennsylvania and Ohio, the places that really took him to the White House back in 2016, that things are changing, that Joe Biden is different to Hillary Clinton in how he's perceived by the public in some of those states? Do you think the president has something to worry about from those polling numbers we're seeing?
No, because I see internal polling and with likely voters, and it paints a completely different scenario. If you look at Ohio, for example, if you look at where the Biden campaign is spending, the Trump campaign is spending, where all the outside groups are spending, no one is spending any money in Ohio. You know why? Because it's a lock for President Trump. Now, I do agree with Omarosa about the economy, and this is a key issue that we're seeing out of these battleground states, in states like Florida, in Pennsylvania, in Wisconsin, in Michigan. It is all about the economy and feeling confident about who is going to lead us post this coronavirus epidemic. And on every single poll, whether it be public or internal, Donald Trump wins over Joe Biden on the issue of the economy. What does Joe Biden want to do? He wants to raise your taxes by $4 trillion. He has a $10 trillion spending, proposal, which will raise taxes on the middle class. He wants to reinstitute the individual mandate, which disproportionately affects lower income people. He is against a payroll tax cut, which affects all Americans. So this is the last thing that working class Americans want getting out of this coronavirus pandemic, is to see their taxes raised, and Joe Biden will do that.
Doesn't matter, doesn't it? And Michael, we see with Joe Biden leading in that national poll in particular, does he have to guard against the fact, this expectation that he will win this race? Looking back, of course, to the polls in 2016 that were telling us that Hillary Clinton would win pretty comfortably, and we saw what happened on election night. What is the concern for the Biden campaign in seeing numbers like that appear to suggest he's winning this race?
You know, if we learned anything about 2016, it's to make sure we run through the finish line, and every vote matters. So the idea that we'll repeat what we saw in 2016 when Donald Trump ended up winning the election by less than 80,000 votes spread across 3 different states, that's just not a reality this go around. Donald Trump is an incumbent, not an unknown commodity. And so all those questions about, oh, you know, Donald Trump, he's going to do something different, he's going to blow up the system. Well, he has blown up the system, and it's hurt millions of Americans. And to the Trump person's comment, it is really ironic to hear someone in the Trump campaign talk about Donald Trump's taxes. I mean, Biden actually has a tax plan. Donald Trump refuses to pay any taxes. Like, this is just a landmine situation. I talked to friends today who are solid Donald Trump supporters who say that it really bothers them that they are paying their fair share of taxes. And he, someone who claims to be a billionaire, is paying as little as possible. And those are from people who are Trump supporters. I don't agree with them, but I respect the fact that they're paying their share.
The tax
well, we can take you back inside that debate venue with the. Just hold on, we'll come back to you in a second, Kelly, but we'll just take you back inside that venue. We've got a sense of who will be in there in those few limited seats that are available. Donald Trump Jr., the president's son, his daughter Tiffany, of course, the First Lady, as you'd expect, Ivanka Trump, Eric Trump, and then senior figures who are very loyal to the president, Congressman Jim Jordan from Ohio, Lara Trump, who leads much of the campaign for the re-election of the president, Kimberly Guilfoyle, who we saw at the convention, of course, the partner of Donald Trump Jr., Mark Meadows is the chief of staff, and then senior figures from the Republican National Committee, and of course, representing Joe Biden will be his wife, Dr. Jill Biden, who will be there. They've also invited guests who represent some of the issues they want to be talking about during the course of this debate. Whether they will be able to bring those in to the format that we will see is another matter, of course. You can see some of the dignitaries making the preamble to this event. Omarosa, coming to you, we've seen Donald Trump use some dirty tricks, questioning whether Joe Biden is taking drugs, whether he's got listening devices. that kind of use of I guess the sort of things he's done before. Do you think it's effective? Do you think it's something that works either in the debate hall or in the minds of the American people?
No, I believe that the American people have become keen on the fact that Donald Trump uses a technique called projection. A lot of what's happening with Donald actually is what he's projecting on his opponent. And so his inability, for instance, to read volumes of policy data, his inability to focus, his inability to connect. I mean, these are things that he's projecting. I mean, I think it's ironic that he speaks very often about Biden's age when Donald Trump is clearly showing neurological decline. And so I think that these things will actually backfire on him, and they are backfiring because Americans don't want to see that. They want to see someone who can lead this country through this really rough patch that we're going through, and those dirty tricks, going low and really talking down to the opponent and attacking him in a personal way will not allow him to convince swing voters, independent voters, to come on his side. In fact, he will push them away.
Okay, well, we've seemed to have some connection issues with Ohio, but let me just tell you about this venue. It's very interesting. Instead of usual auditorium settings, the debate is being hosted in this atrium at a university, Notre Dame, the original university that was going to host. They pulled out because of the pandemic. Now, long ago, the building you're looking at was transformed into a temporary 1,000-bed surge hospital for expected coronavirus patients. It never ended up being used, but the floor where the debate stage was built was lined with beds for patients, and it had copper piping to bring in oxygen. Now it's turned, as you can see, it's been turned into a makeshift debate hall with a stage. It's red carpeting and elevated platforms for cameras. Let's talk to our panel now. Michael Starr Hopkins, I just want to ask you, in terms of Joe Biden releasing his tax results, do you think that's going to play in his favor?
I do. I mean, I think it shows, one, transparency, and two, I think it puts more attention on President Trump to show his tax returns. At the end of the day, every president since Nixon has shown their tax returns. He has claimed that there's no issue with his tax returns, and we know that he's been paying $750 in tax returns, which is just ludicrous and, I think, to be honest, unpatriotic. But Joe Biden releasing his shows that he's got nothing to fear. So
okay, Kelly. Kelly, what do you think? I mean, do you think he's going to release these tax returns?
No, he's not going to release his tax returns.
Why not?
In 2016, he didn't release returns. It had no implication on the election whatsoever. He won it. The American people do not care about tax returns. They know that Donald Trump is into real estate. They know that he has more debt than he has assets, and that's the reason why his taxes were $750. I mean, this is a topic that doesn't affect people at their kitchen tables, and so they don't care. They knew who Donald Trump was in 2016. They elected him. They now know who he is in 2020, and they're going to reelect him again.
Omarosa, what do you think? Do you think they don't care?
Oh, no, Americans care. I talked to people today, the same as Michael, who talked about the fact that they had to set up payment plans in order to pay their taxes, that they had to sell valuables or take second jobs in order to pay their taxes. And so for Kelly to say that Americans don't care just shows you how disconnected this campaign is from the American people. People are hurting. And to see that their leader has used trickery and deceit in order to not pay taxes, not only is it unpatriotic, but I think it's downright criminal in order to deprive people of funds for Social Security, for health care, for infrastructure. That's what he does, Kelly. When he doesn't pay his taxes, he deprives the American people of funds that could help support those programs. And when she says they don't care, it's because this campaign does not care about the American people. And Donald Trump should be ashamed of himself. I'm very glad that Biden has been transparent, because that's what we need in the next leader of this country, not someone who continued to hide their taxes and claim an audit. I mean, they're auditing him because he claimed a $7 million refund, a tax refund. Could you imagine that in this day and age? It's actually shameful.
Kelly?
Well, you know, Donald Trump donates his salary every, quarter as president of the United States, $400,000 back into the federal government, into aid programs. I think the last month he put it into HHS for some more coronavirus vaccine testing. So to say this president isn't generous or doesn't care about America because he's taking advantage of the U.S. tax law, I think is absolutely ingenuous. I don't know of an American who says that I'm going to pay as much as I can into, the IRS because that's my patriotic duty. How many of us go to accountants to try to figure out the minimum that we owe so that we can pay that to the United States? I think
if it's not a problem, Kelly, if it's not a problem, why doesn't he just release his tax returns?
He's
exactly.
He's under audit, and that's the reason why he says he doesn't want to release them. And you know what? It didn't matter in 2016. It's not going to matter in 2020.
Let me just real quick, this fact about it not mattering, even if it's true that it doesn't matter to the American people, it should. We have an obligation to inform the American public when they're not informed. And so it should matter whether we have all the information to make an informed decision, because we need to know whether the president, when he does deals with Turkey or, with Saudi Arabia, that he's doing those deals in America's best interest, not in the interest of Trump organization and the people who he works with.
Okay, just hang on, everyone, because I think we have Greg up again. He's outside that editorium. Greg, are you back with us?
Yes, back with you. Thank you very much, Kimberly, and apologies for those technical difficulties. We can take you back inside to the debate venue, and the officials from the Commission on Presidential Debates, which is the body that organises these debates and has done for many years, just saying a few words to those who are inside. And again, you can see the very different look of this debate venue on this campus in Cleveland from what we would expect. Those 80 to 100 people who've taken those seats, many of them family members, part of the campaign, some invited by the Commission on Presidential Debates. And we're shortly expecting to hear from Chris Wallace, who is the host of this first debate, a host well known to many Americans for many years, currently with the Fox News channel, as I say, something that's pretty sympathetic to Donald Trump generally, but a man who has tangled with him in interviews recently on a number of issues. So we will expect to hear from Chris Wallace shortly. I want to go back to our panel and to Omarosa. I just wonder, these debates have always been said to matter a great deal to the American people. Do you think they do in this day and age? Are they that significant?
I think that they're even more critical now because Americans are at home and they are laser focused on this race. I heard that Kelly mentioned that Donald was still out doing rallies. I think it's irresponsible to put people at risk, and to see after every rally his staff members, audience members, all contracting the virus. And so yes, these debates are crucial to the campaigns, particularly to Donald Trump, who has been struggling in these battleground states and who needs to make up ground and to prove to Americans that he actually is neurologically able to continue to do the job, but also that he can actually keep a stance on a position without flip-flopping every single week.
Well, we've just seen the First Lady and the children of Donald Trump arrive. Now we can listen to Chris Wallace, the host of tonight's debate. Okay, well, we can't hear from Chris Wallace at the moment. He's just introducing himself and laying out some of the ground rules for tonight's debate to those members of the audience who are there. As I say, we saw Donald Trump's wife, the First Lady Melania, arrive, and those members of his family who are in the auditorium as well, and Dr. Jill Biden, of course, Joe Biden's wife, also taking her seat in that auditorium. But Kelly, I want to ask you that question I just asked Omarosa. In this day and age, with everyone knowing so much about this president, who is transparent, certainly, do you think this debate does matter to the American people? Are people watching and deciding in significant numbers?
Yes, I mean, they're going to be watching in significant numbers. This country is so divided that, the left and the right are so far apart, but there is that group of independents, even if it's 2 to 4% or as high as 15%, that will decide this election. And they need to know more about Joe Biden. I think this is more about Joe Biden, if he can stand on stage for 90 minutes and complete sentences, if he doesn't, blow up at the president, if he can hold his composure. I think those are things that the people need to know about Joe Biden. They know everything that they need to know about Donald Trump.
And Michael, to you, that same question, does it matter? And you talked earlier about Joe Biden needing to avoid getting into a fight with Donald Trump on the debate stage, not rise to the insults on the stage tonight. Why is that important when a lot of Americans might want to see him fight back from some of those insults?
This is a serious and sober moment in our nation's history. And I think voters are going to reward whichever candidate treats it as such. The American people are scared. They're worried about our future and worried whether we're going to go backwards. They're seeing protests and fires all around the country. And now this is the moment. This is the final stretch of this race, which will determine where we are not just 4 years from now, but 40 years from now. So I think it's very important for Joe Biden to focus in and make sure he talks to the American people and not just talks to Donald Trump.
And Kelly, the president has raised questions about the legitimacy of this election for a number of weeks and whether he'll accept the result. Is that not reckless and careless when, as Michael says, there is such division and such a sense of anger on the streets of American cities?
No, I mean, not when you look at where the push for mail-in voting is going. States that have never done mail-in voting on a mass level are now doing it. The fact of the matter is, with mail-in voting, there's many ballots that are, discontinued or stricken out. There's only 5 states in this country who have all-in mail-in voting, and it took them years to get there. And so I think it's very worrisome with states like, in Michigan and Pennsylvania and some of these battleground states to introduce this whole new system of voting, literally 30 days, 35 days before an election.
But we're in a pandemic. They've decided to do that because of the facts on the ground of people being nervous about going out to vote. Was that not an important thing for election officials around the country to be doing, Kelly?
Absolutely, but you can't do it this close to an election. I'm sorry, if you can go to Walmart to pick up your prescription, you can safely go in person to vote. I mean, we thought that there was
because they don't care.
That's the problem.
Yeah, they don't care about Americans dying from COVID. What she's saying is they don't care.
No, I'm not saying we don't care. I'm saying that there's ways to go in person and cast your ballot and to do it safely and to be social distanced and to wear a mask. And that's the only way you know for sure that your vote is going to count. And the American public agrees with me by an overwhelming majority.
Kelly, you can't make up your own facts. And the facts are that American people are concerned. I mean, they're scared to leave their home. Kelly, Americans are afraid to leave their home. There are Americans who are taking this very seriously, and they don't want to be forced when they can have an option of simply mailing in their ballots. So to call that into question after 200,000 Americans have died, Kelly, I think it's really, I don't even know what to say when you could care less when someone over 70 wants to mail in their ballot and you're saying throw on a mask and just go out there. We have to have a heart for the American people, and it's clear that you all don't.
My grandparents are 2 of those people who are scared to go to Walmart and get their prescription. So.
And I'm saying that you can cast an absentee ballot.
Michael, Kelly, Omarosa, we'll have to stop there. If the debate on the stage is anything like as spirited as the one we've just had, we're all in for a pretty good 90 minutes. So thank you very much for now. We will speak to you all after that debate is over. You can see inside again the venue here on the campus in Cleveland, Ohio, and all of those who are in the auditorium, the lucky 80 to 100 who are in there have now taken their seats. The First Lady took her seat last of all.